Louis. Yay! I just want to welcome you to the opportunity to be part of a community that knows that life is divine and that we awaken to our magnificence. The Center for Spiritual Living here in St. Louis has a mission statement that is our vision is to inspire, awaken, and transform lives. And so that's something good to aspire to, isn't it? To awaken. How many of you are awake? Yes. And how many of you want to be awakened even more? All right. So awaken and transform lives. So my name is Mary Jean DeRusha, and it's such a privilege to be here. I had to take the mask off. It's really quite hard speaking through that when I also have a coffee filter under it so that my lipstick doesn't get on my mask. And now I don't have any lipstick. Isn't this an interesting experience? I said it actually saves on makeup and lipstick because I don't even wear makeup anymore. I just throw a mask on. I love it. You know, it's a great experience. So I have a few announcements. Next Sunday, we are having a congregational meeting for members and friends of the Center for Spiritual Living. It will be here in the sanctuary, and it will also be online on a Zoom call. And the Zoom information is in your weekly bulletin, and we'll also have it on the website. So if you're a Zoomer, you can Zoom in. And it's an opportunity once a year we come together. It might be 45 minutes to an hour, and we talk about ideas we have for the future, what we've done, and ask for input. What would you like to see? What can we do better? And we have had a survey that went out. If you got the survey, please send it in and let us know, what we can do to help you. Normally, our classes would have begun in October, but since my house burnt down, it's been a while to get back into that groove. So we didn't start them in October. Stay tuned. We will have classes, and we will also have opportunities to share and get together. So, but next Sunday is very important, and if you are here, just stay. We'll have peanuts, and we have a couple snacks that you could have in between service, or bring something if you'd like. There's like a 15-minute break, and there'll be social distancing, and everybody will wear their masks. So please join our congregational meeting next Sunday. This Tuesday, and every Tuesday, we have a great group of people that bring their food truck here to the CSL parking lot. And this started because a neighbor has a food truck, and he used to go to different companies. Well, all of a sudden, all the companies closed because of COVID. And he had just bought this company, I think a year ago. So he came over and he said, could we use your parking lot, and we'll advertise it and get people to come and be part of the Don't Cook Tuesdays. So that's what we've been doing to help out the different food trucks. So this Tuesday, it starts at 4 to 6:30. And this Tuesday is Wayno's International Cuisine. I have not had any Wayno's, but I'm sure it's good because the guy that sets this up only picks the best food trucks. So it's a way of celebrating life and making your kitchen stay clean, and what other things help? Yeah, and it's very good food. Also, they all tithe to the center 10% of what they make. Now, I did not ask them to do that. I would have given them the parking lot free because we're not using it, and I wanted to help them. But they also know that when you give, you receive, and so they've been giving us 10% of what they make. I think that's very cool. So if nothing else, come out and say, hey, we support you for doing that. 4 to 6:30 on Tuesdays. So also this afternoon, if you're looking for something to do, Javier Mendoza will be at Mount Pleasant Winery in Augusta from 2 to 5 p.m. If you plan on going, talk to me afterwards, because I think I need a ride. We're watching our grand dog Oscar. So we're kind of sharing cars in a different way. So those are some of the announcements next Sunday and Tuesday and today. 3 things that you can do to make your life better. And now for our opening prayer, Tom Moore.
Okay. We all okay now? All right, good. Um, my name's Tom Moore. I'm on the prayer team here. I think I'll get rid of this mask. I've got a coffee filter in mine, too. Yeah. Now you know I use lipstick. Oh, well. Uh, I just wanted to pick up on something you said, Mary Jean. I think people should know, and I know this just kind of indirectly by personal experience. Javier Mendoza, during this whole pandemic, has, through his own good fortune, been able to voluntarily send monetary support to other musicians who may be having difficulty during this time. He's an amazing guy and deserves our support. So, I just recently had occasion to go rooting through the church file cabinets, and I found this that I have not seen before and not heard before. I don't know if it's reprinted from a book or not, but I thought it is good to share with everyone. It's a prayer by Ernest Holmes, My Prayer for My Country. So let us pray along with Ernest here. Believing in the divine destiny of the United States of America and in the preservation of liberty, security, and self-expression for all, I offer this, my prayer for my country. I know that divine intelligence governs the destiny of the United States of America, directing the thought and the activity of all who guide its affairs. I know that success, prosperity, and happiness are the gifts of freedom and are the divine heritage of everyone in this country. I know that success, prosperity, and happiness are now operating in the affairs of every individual in this country. I know that divine guidance enlightens the collective mind of the people of this country, causing it to know that economic security may come to all without the loss of either personal freedom or individual self-expression. I know that no one can believe or be led to believe that freedom must be surrendered in order to ensure economic security for all. The all-knowing mind contains the answer to every problem which confronts this country. I know that every leader in this country is now directed by this all-knowing mind and has the knowledge of a complete solution to every problem. Each is compelled to act upon this knowledge to the end that abundance, security, and peace shall come to all. And I know that this spiritual democracy shall endure, guaranteeing to everyone in this country personal liberty, happiness, and self-expression. And so let us say together, and so that it is.
Hi, Tony. This is a quote from Ernest Holmes. Love is within us, it cannot be destroyed, but it can be ignored. To the extent that we abandon love, we will feel it has abandoned us. Denying love is our only problem, and embracing it is our only answer. Through the power of love, we can let go of past history and begin again. Love heals, forgives, and makes whole.
Good morning, good morning. Oh yeah, this is the challenge here. Oh wait.
The crowd goes wild.
Oh, it's also good. Wow. Where did fall go? I mean, really. All right, so in response to what we just heard from Ernest Holmes through Tom, here's our little ditty. I don't know that I can do this today.
This is one of our first original songs that we wrote. We've played it here. You might be familiar with it. It's an oldie but a goodie, a Bob and Pookie original.
I'm gonna figure it out.
I woke up this morning, something wasn't right. My life was out of balance, I couldn't see the light. I called up my minister, told her of my dread. Without missing one beat, this is what she said. Love is the word.
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 Love is the word. Well, I went to the doctor 'cause I was feeling bad. Sickness all inside me, thought I was going mad. Asked for a prescription, he handed me a note. I was so surprised to see just what that doctor wrote.
Love is the word.
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 Love is the word. L-O-V-E is the W-O-R-D.
Say that with us.
L-O-V-E is the W-O-R-D. L-O-V-E is the W-O-R-D. L-O-V-E is the W-O-R-D.
I went to a psychic
Yeah.
to have my fortune told,
Uh-huh.
to see into the future and how it will unfold. She just shook her head and put away her tarot cards, looked me in the eye and said,
Man, it ain't that hard.
love is the word.
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 Love is the word. Sing
Love
along
is the
now.
word.
Love is the word.
Love is the
Love
word.
is the word.
Love is the
Love
word.
is the word.
Love is the word.
Love is the word.
I'm talking about
Love is
love,
the
love,
word.
love, 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 love.
Love is the word.
I'm talking about love is the word.
Love is the word.
I'm talking about love, 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 love.
Love is the word.
I'm talking about love is the word. Awesome!
I'd like to introduce our guest speaker for this morning. He's a man beloved all over the world, known throughout the counties and cities of Missouri as one of the wisest men we've ever known. It's a genuine delight to have him get up in the morning and say, I'm speaking today. I love it when he is speaking. And I just want us to welcome our incredible Reverend Larry DeRusha.
Thank you. It's incredible to wake up in the morning. took notes last night. There they are. So I guess we're on a wing and a prayer. Many of you know we had a life lesson a while back. Well, I want to talk about course corrections. Course corrections, what we need to do and what is telling us we need a course correction. It seems like the excuse me, it seems like the universe has a way of letting us know when we need to change direction a little bit. You know, when they send the shuttles out into space and the rockets out into space, they do course corrections, some of them very minute. When we're sailing in a boat, we do course corrections from time to time. And in planes, they do course correction from time to time. Not as much as they used to because of computers, but how many of you have ever had your GPS on and it's taken you someplace you had no idea you were going to go? Especially the early ones. Mary Jean and I were traveling to Kansas City for a conference, and I put it into the GPS, and we drove, and then it took us off the highway and onto some kind of side street, and from the side street to an alleyway, and from an alley to another street, and we ended up in the back of the Sheraton Hotel at the loading docks. Not at the front, but at the back. So we didn't bother to do a course correction. So we ended up in a different place than we thought we were going to be. So what are the things that the universe is telling us that we're not paying attention to? And that's the question. The question is, you have to be present in order to know that a course correction is necessary. Like if we were driving up to Michigan a couple weeks ago, and on the way, it was just like you can set the autopilot and you can just drive. And for me, I wasn't really present at that time. I was just kind of thinking of all the other things that were going on in life. And then we came upon a construction area. And so now I had to be present and aware of what was going on. And that happened all the way up the highway till we finally got to Michigan. So it took us, I think, about 7.5 hours to get there, and we were originally supposed to be there about 6 hours. On the way back, I stayed present during the entire trip, and as we got to a certain point, I heard the voice say, "Go left." I go, "That's not the highway that GPS says." Okay, I went left. We went down from the bottom of Lake Michigan. We went down one of the highways that was a 4-lane highway almost all the way, clear sailing, very few cars. And we got to Highway 70, and there was a bunch of trucks, as usual, on 70. And it took us another way, and the next thing you know, we were on Highway 40, and we were headed back. It did a course correction, and I listened. How many times have we gotten a message that course correction is necessary? Certainly the country is going through a course correction. It's trying to go through a course correction, trying to figure out what's next and where it's going. And it's not really listening, is it? What's happening is people are tuning into their own belief systems and belief structures, and they're filtering that information. I did a podcast this past week, and we talked about some of the neuroscience. There is almost 400 billion bits of information that are coming into our senses. And of that, we actually process out everything except 400 bits. Think about that. 400,000 bits of information outside the 400. And that's what we see, feel, hear, taste, and touch. Which means we have belief systems and structures in place that filter what's coming in. When the great masters say the world is an illusion, what they're talking about is an illusion because you're not seeing the world. You're seeing your version of the world. And by the way, there are 7 billion versions of the world. Isn't it interesting that the universe can actually coordinate at least a portion of that crowd to the same place, same concepts, same ideas. Now, that points us to what Ernest Holmes says, there's universal mind. And we live and move and have our being in universal mind. Because universal mind in current language is consciousness. So we're all in consciousness. The confusion often comes up, well, the dog and the cat are conscious and so on and so on and so on. Well, all the way down in quantum physics, they say that certain particles and quarks are conscious. That's a misnomer. It's a misnomer because that's equating the body to being the true part of who we are. That it's the physical side, the materialist side, that comes from. If you start from consciousness, there's only one consciousness. Your consciousness, your consciousness, your consciousness, the conscious of the dog, the cat, the fish, all the way down the line to particles is one consciousness experiencing in 7 billion different ways. That's how we can have same information from person to person to person without consciousness. You couldn't do that. They wouldn't even understand the language. Nothing would make sense. And in quantum physics, everything is interconnected. And the law there that Ernest Holmes probably would have said if he knew it at the time is called non-locality. Non-locality comes from Bell's theorem of mathematics back in the 60s that got proved in the late 80s. And that is what happens to this particular particle happens to this particular particle no matter what the distance, and it happens simultaneously. Well, we're always believing that Einstein was correct, that it's nothing can go faster than the speed of light. And yet, these two simultaneously impact each other. The experiments have proved out time and again that this is true. So now, in the quantum world, we have what's called non-locality. Well, non-locality is something the mystics have known about for thousands and thousands of years. Everything is interconnected. What happens to you is happening to me. Well, how do you believe that to be true? Because every single atom, every single quark, every lepton, gluon, whatever the particle is affected. Every particle in the universe is affected by every other particle in the universe. Is that mind-blowing or not? If it's not, I got more for you. The power of understanding the oneness is that when we stay in the present moment, outside of our mind, our chattering mind, in the present moment, aware, that awareness is present universally. That's pretty astounding if you think about it for a second. That awareness, which is only one, is universal. Therefore, as we stay in that awareness, that's the power and presence that Ernest talks about. When we stay in that awareness, the whole universe can inform us, rather than our local mind. I wrote down one quote that I really liked. It was by Ramana Maharshi. It says, your package is being delivered. Oh, that's Amazon. Yep, missed it. Okay. Everything your mind says is a resistance to love. Everything your mind says is a resistance to love. What does he mean there? Because we have so many different concepts of love. And so anybody could hear that, and everybody can have a different kind of idea as to what he means. What he's specifically talking about when he says love is he's saying consciousness. Love is the way the mystics talk about consciousness. Whereas we talk about consciousness in science. And in Ernest's language, it's universal mind quite often. Now, I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole, but universal mind is one of the planes, not the final planes, because universal mind is still mental. Once we move beyond that, we start getting into more and more of the spiritual planes. So in this consciousness, this love, he's saying the mind, the ego mind, that's what's giving us our problems. That's what's causing the troubles. Why is that so? It's so because, as Don Miguel Ruiz said in one of his books, I think The Four Agreements, he said, We have been domesticated into the way we believe and think. So from childhood, early childhood, by the time you're walking, you're already hearing that there's things that are separate from you. Things that are separate from you is not possible in the universe. What is possible is that the mind believes that there's separateness. And so what that does is we then begin to say, okay, there's out there and there's in here. Now we've already separated. We've now got a boundary that's up. Once we have a boundary up, that then is domesticated into a belief that there are boundaries everywhere. What does that do? It says, I am limited. I am limited. Whereas if we really know the truth of I, you'd realize right away, I is unlimited. It's limitless. When Ernest Holmes talks about doing treatment work, in that very first step of treatment, he's saying you need to shift your mind, your chattering ego mind, to quiet so that you can move into the silence, which is where love is, where consciousness resides, so that you can, not that it's separate from, but that we become aware of it. You notice the difference? Most of the time we are actually aware of the chattering roommates in our head, right? Most of the time we're listening to a narration of life. Most of the time we're paying attention to certain things that are going on in the body. We have a sense that what's in the body is different from everything else. Truthfully, a baby doesn't know that, does it? Has no concept of there's something other than me. It just knows mother and baby are one thing. So when Ernest said we need to get to this level of consciousness first, because in that level of consciousness, everything is perfect. And if we now bring that from that consciousness, that awareness, into our treatment, we go, well, if everything is perfect in the universe, then I know what perfect is when it comes to this illness. This illness is a mental illness. All illness then is mental illness in universal mind. But it shows up in my body because of the beliefs that I have, that I've adopted from somewhere, maybe in childhood or somewhere in between. And it constantly plays on our body because everything is interconnected. So when I go from universal consciousness, universal mind, into the next step of I'm part of that because I'm connected. You're connected, everybody's connected, right? Well, just deductive logic says if everything is all one, then I must be part of that. Otherwise, that treatment's never going to work. So once I'm into that state, then I go from that place and say, if it's all one, everything is perfect. And now I'm going to make a statement from the power of the universe, not from my local mind. Yeah? Not from my ego wishing you would get well, not from my ego thinking you're going to get well, from the universe saying you are perfect now. And then it moves into gratitude, because gratitude opens everything up. It opens everything up, so you move from that awareness and that consciousness to create a vibration of perfection. That vibration of perfection radiates out. And if it's directed towards another person, it radiates out into universal mind to that particular localized mind. And that's spiritual healing. Make sense? I mean, Ernest was so good at just going bing, 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 bing. If you follow this, this is what's true. We forget, because we get so into the chatter and narration of our mind, we forget who we truly are. And I keep saying this over and over again because there are 6.8 billion people who don't know who they are. They believe they're the mind and the body. We're taught that, we're domesticated into that, we're trained into that. We absolutely and completely believe it, and it's completely and totally false. And yet we believe it. We're suckers for that kind of thing. And we need to correct our own thinking and have an experience, a spiritual experience, so that we know the truth. Spiritual experience, really the most spiritual experience you can have is to move your world inside yourself, the whole world inside yourself. Go inside until you recognize, oh, what is it that's aware of my world? What is it that's aware of my mind and my body? Something's listening to your thoughts, right? Something's listening to your thoughts. Something's aware you've got a body. Something's aware there's a world out there. Even if we believe it's an objective world out there, something is awareness. That's Ernest Holmes telling you when he says the power and presence is within you. When you move to that power and presence, you're moving to the truth of who you are. And when you move to the truth of who you are, you're leaving the isolated, separate self, the ego self, behind, and you're moving into that state, and that's the state in which all healing, no matter what kind of healing it is, takes place. If we were to get a group of people together, 500, 1,000 people together, and everybody did exactly that, it would make a ripple through the universe. The more people, the bigger the ripple, right? So if we want change in the world out here, we have to change in here and recognize who we are, the truth of who we are, the consciousness of who we are, that we are love, first and foremost, and only love. But, as Ramana Maharshi said, whatever comes from our mind is a resistance to that love. That's really powerful. He's saying everything that the ego is generating is a resistance in some way to consciousness and the flow. It flows when we get out of our own way, when we get that ego to not just be quiet, but just ignore it and allow it to do whatever it's doing and begin to allow the flow to happen. Everything necessary that's going to happen will happen. And the prize horse bucked him off and he broke his leg. And oh, the people all around said, oh my gosh, that's terrible. And he said, we'll see. And about 2 or 3 weeks later, a war broke out and they were conscripting everybody. But he had a broken leg, so he was exempt. Everybody went, wow, that's amazing. He said, we'll see. Well, the story actually goes on and on and on. You can see where it's going. It's saying, don't judge. Everything is exactly the way it needs to be. If you stay in that place, it will flow. The house burned down, okay? Good, bad, or indifferent. It's part of the flow. We don't know where that's going to impact what's coming, right? Maybe the beauty of it is we're in a new place, smaller, and that's what we were talking about, would like to do. Maybe it's because something down the road is coming that's important to us. Yes, we lost almost everything, and yes, we had attachment to it. For me, that was a big one to say, okay, I wasn't attached to anything except all the data on my computer. Oh. I go, well, there's a lesson right there. I need a course correction. A course correction that says, don't be attached to anything. Since the universe is universally intelligent, intelligence beyond where we know intelligence to be, then don't you think it knows? It knows without having to think it. Try that one on. It knows without having to think it. Awareness knows, it knows, and yet it doesn't think. It knows you're thinking, right? It knows you're thinking. It doesn't have to say to itself, oh, you're thinking. It doesn't need that. It's aware and it knows. So in that place, that's the place that we want to move to train ourselves to be in the flow of what's going on from a universal perspective. Is it difficult? Yes. I won't say it's not difficult. Some people, they get there very quickly. Some people, it just takes a long time. It all depends upon all the structures of the ego. And when you look at the neuroscience, you look at the brain scans, for example, or the infrared technology that looks at the brain, you find that the older you get, the more these neural networks seem like they're, I'll use the word encrusted, it's not the technical term, but they seem like they're crusty old things. And they don't want to shake that crust off very easily. Those are the beliefs that we've held for 30, 40, 50 years. So when we do a course correction, the course correction is to put us on the course towards a destination that we wanted to get to. In the universe, there's no destination. The course correction is simply designed to move you in a place where you awaken to the universe itself. It's simply moving you to the place of awareness. There is absolutely no suffering in awareness, because all suffering comes from the ego. All suffering comes from a thought generating a feeling, and then it plays on itself. Oh, let's have fun with this. We're gonna be in suffering for a while. Yeah? And I know nobody's experienced that. However, the truth already knows you as you are, and it keeps beckoning you back to source. It knows the place that you're in because it knows everything, correct? It knows everything, so it knows where you're at and what the path is that you're on. And then there's the course correction that says, if you go a little bit this way, you're going to be aligned to that. And when you start getting more aligned to that, suffering falls away, judgment falls away, narration falls away, and you are just like a fish in the ocean, just swimming, just moving along in the stream. It is the most powerful experience anybody ever has. And if you talk to those that have gone into that place, even that 400 bits I was talking about, that amount of information coming into your senses, that changes. And it starts to widen out. You start to see more and more. Adyashanti, who had this experience, was doing Zen meditation, got up and started walking out of his room, and the floor began to collapse away from him. And the walls began to fall. And he was looking at all the trees, and the trees began to disappear. And pretty soon, he was in a different state. That's because now he's getting all of the information coming into him. And it took him a little while to come back to, oh, I understand. The mind gets involved again. And then more of that experience happened, and more of that experience happened. That neurostructure that we have that perceives all of this, we know that if the average person were to get 400 billion bytes of information simultaneously, we would be paralyzed because the brain couldn't process it. So the whole purpose of the brain, both part of the frontal part of the brain, is about decision making. It needs to have Occam's razor, the simplest of all things, to make a decision. The more complicated, the more difficult the decision. So the rest of the brain is all involved in the process of filtering out everything else other than what's needed for survival, what's needed for what's happening at the moment, or what the ego is driving to get. As we let go, and they have the fMRIs, the functional magnetic image systems, that show where the brain, as you begin to let go, it shows how the brain itself begins to shut down the electrical activity. And when it begins to shut down all that electrical activity, more information is passing through. And the one place is in the center of the brain. In the center of the brain, that spot is lit up. And that's what we called the meditation spot. And when they did, in Canada about 15 years ago, they did a research project, and they did the fMRI on those that were doing meditation. And what they found was that those that were meditators for a long period of time had much less noise in the brain, and that spot was active. When they went into meditation, there was no activity except in that brain spot. It became known as the God spot after a while. But what it's telling us is the way the brain functions is it's not consciousness. It's simply managing the system that we have in terms of understanding automatic functioning of the heart and the various organs and things. But who we are is not that. And the more we recognize and have an experience that this is very limited, there's something that's not, that's the point at which that spiritual experience takes us to the place that we want to be. In the term of Amma, it's going home. You have the ability. And every time your mind doubts that you have the ability, pass it off. Just ignore it. And keep moving to that place of being aware. Go, yeah, I'm aware. I'm aware of my thought. I woke up in the middle of the night, almost awake, going, I think I was thinking for the last 15 or 20 minutes, or maybe 5 hours. Because in my dream process, my mind was working through things, and it was processing it all. When I woke up, how many of you have had that experience? You go, I've been thinking through my entire night here. No wonder I'm exhausted. You know, the brain actually takes more, I'll close with it, the brain actually takes more energy than the rest of the body by a factor of 5 or 6. And yet, more information, true information, comes into the heart than comes into the brain. The heart receives information through its field and sends it to the brain. The brain, for most people, filters out most of that. This is love experiencing. And it's getting filtered out. As we're opening up to love. Pretty soon, this functioning starts to shut down, and everything runs automatically, and we live and have our being from the heart center. We have the power, you have the power, everybody has the power. And at a time when it's so noisy in the world, it's really important to take time for yourself and to go inside and to spend as much time as you can doing that. And I know you have the time because you're all at home most of the time. And we may have more time. And that's great from the perspective of you get to know who you are, truthfully. Save your questions for later. I love you. Thank you.
You're funny. Do you have any questions? You will be available. That would be just a good Zoom class of just questions for Reverend Larry after a talk like this. We'll come up with something. Whatever is your gift today, I just want to thank all of you that are so generous. A lot of you give monthly online. A lot of you send in your gifts. Some of you bring them when you show up. However you do it, thank you, because your gifts do keep the center running. And it's such an amazing community of people that go, wait a minute, there's a power for good, a power for love. That's my life. It's an opportunity for each one of us to make a difference on this planet. So I thank you very much for all your gifts. And so right now, just whatever is your gift, if you've already given it electronically or if you have it in your hand, just close your eyes for 1 minute and give thanks for all the gifts that we have, that we're able to give from our gifts. to assist not only the Center for Spiritual Living, but we also tithe to other organizations to help them. So it doesn't just come here, it moves out into the community and to the world. Show up next week for our congregational meeting. You'll find out where we do send things and how we can help other people. I bless the gift and the giver, and so I let it be, and so it is. Thank you.
So we have two songs back to back. Pookie will be up here in the second one right after this. But first, it's a CSL sermon summary. Trying to take all that Larry, how can I possibly capsulize this in a few lines in a doo-wop song? I'm going to give it my all. It's great to gather in these days of infection and hear Larry speak on a course correction. So much information, but nothing fits. You're only perceiving 400 bits, 400 bits, 400 bits, 400 bits, 400 bits, 400 bits. We like to separate here from there. Stuff is actually happening everywhere. Your mind, it chatters with push and shove, but in the silence you are aware of love, 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 aware of love. One more. Express your gratitude and allow. The simple truth is you are perfect now, 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 perfect. There you go. That was just a little piece of it. We're going to do one more. Oh, we got one more song. I know it seems like that should be, but actually we got a special song for you in the same key.
So just thinking about the message, right? And then coming into because the world is really noisy right now, a lot of narratives out there. So the whole thing of coming into the center of your being and listening to the voice of Spirit, guiding you and directing you. And when you come to that holy, sacred space in that way, you will hear Spirit speak to you. And so it's been a beautiful year. We've learned a lot. We've lost a lot. And we're still growing. We're still learning. So think of this as a prayer to your very own heart. I will surrender to my greatest, highest good. I will release any fear that blocks my way. For every step I take is taken in your faith, and I am stronger every moment, every day. My mind is willing and my heart is open wide. I trust my instincts and let Spirit be my guide. I vow to live as I continue walking in this mystery. I will surrender to my greatest, highest good. I will release any fear that blocks my way. For every step I take is taken in pure faith. And I am grateful every moment, every day. There may be walls, there may be roadblocks in my way, but I will choose to take a higher path each day. And now I know that what I thought was safe and sound was only habit and regret that held me down. I will surrender to my greatest, highest good. I will release any fear that blocks my way. For every step I take is taken in pure faith. And I'm more kinder every moment, every day. I am more loving every moment, every day. I will surrender every moment, every day.
Cookie and Bob. Wow. That's amazing. That gives me goosebumps still. Before we begin our prayer for today, I definitely want to thank Tim Sullivan, who last Sunday afternoon put on an outdoor concert for us that was just amazing. Tim Sullivan, thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you to everybody who helped work. Marcia, who ran the bar. Linda Joy, who helped drink the bar. And I'm teasing. And helped her sell. It was an amazing time. And I thank you so much. We are going to have a campfire at the end of the month to celebrate Halloween not on Halloween night, but Friday, the night before. So save that date. Let's just go into that space of spirit. And there's some people I'd like to put in prayer this morning. And you may have somebody that you would like also. When I finish, then you can call out who you'd like to put in prayer. First, I'd like to, as we recognize that wholeness of spirit and that divine one consciousness, we move into that space of wholeness. And we know the truth of Diane S. from Michigan. That wholeness of spirit that is her very life. On this plane or on the next, She experiences Spirit as love. So I bless her in her wholeness, recognizing that power and presence. And also in this space of the one consciousness of wholeness, I accept the perfect healing for Anne, that her energy and her vibrancy, her aliveness touches all that she comes in contact with, and her body responds in that wholeness that she is. And I also like to know this morning about Erica, that she experiences that wholeness in every cell of her body, and perfect right action with all the nurses and doctors surrounding her. Knowing that fullness of Spirit. And I also want to bless Dorothy and her amazing son, Keith, who made his transition a year ago. Knowing that life continues on. There's that one consciousness that is forever expanding and expressing here or beyond our sight. And right now, if there's somebody that you would like to know their wholeness, just call out their name. Recognizing the perfection of this universe that we live in. I know the truth of each person whose name has been mentioned, and all the miracles that happen around us daily. So as we open up our heart in love, we also ask a blessing on those that move this country forward in love and in harmony and peace. And it begins with each one of us. So right now I accept that oneness and wholeness that we are is the truth. And I bless each one of us to our highest and greatest good. Giving thanks right now with a heart filled with gratitude. I let it be so. And as we say together, and so it is. Thank you. I love those glass bowls. They're neat. Yeah. So our closing song can also be a congregation song if you want to sing along, if you want to stand or sit or wherever you are in the world, stand up and sing.
Come on, let's make it feel like church in here today. Get up on your feet.
Even
You
if
know
you're at
this one.
home,
This is a house favorite.
dance like no one is watching.